Welcome back to another edition of Virginia Wine and Song. This is my second entry for the month of November 2025. I've decided to shoot two videos this month, mainly because the holidays are coming up and you may want to check out the Virginia wine scene and stop by a couple of wineries and stock up for the holidays. It's a good time to do it. Of course, the leaves are changing right now. I think we're very close to the peak leaves. I think the peak leaves may have been this past weekend, actually, the weekend of November 8th and 9th. So anyway, I'm here to talk about another Virginia wine and another underrated album. And once again, I concentrate on the era of music, rock and roll music primarily, from 1964 to 1999. So I always try to find an underrated album or an overlooked album or a lost masterpiece, whatever you want to call it. And I try to pair that record, excuse me, or CD with a Virginia wine. And I also try to find a little bit of a link between the wine and the album. Sometimes I'm successful, sometimes I'm not. So this time we're going to be talking about another winery in the Shenandoah Valley. And I think I'm going to be covering all of the wineries in the Shenandoah Valley before the year is over. And this winery is relatively new. They've been open since 2019. And they're called Star in the Valley. Star in the Valley, and this winery is located a little west of Strasburg, maybe about 10 minutes west of Strasburg, in a little area called Star Tannery, if you're familiar with that area of Shenandoah County. It's a day drive. You can get to it in one day from DC to get on 66, take 66 all the way to where it ends on Route 81, Interstate 81. And then get on 81 very briefly, and then get on US Highway 55. Actually, that's State Highway 55. Follow your GPS, follow your Google map, follow whatever. It's very easy to find. And it's called Star in the Valley because they're high up. They have a high elevation up there. And their wines are very, very good, and they're very well priced, I have to say. This is considered to be a boutique winery. And usually boutique wineries have a tendency to be higher in price because they don't have the production of a lot of the big mass quantity producing wineries do. Because they have a smaller batch production, their wines tend to be a little bit pricier. These wines are actually pretty well priced, and I actually have the one that's the highest price point. I don't know how I ended up with this when I took home a bottle. I decided to go with their highest priced wine, which is $32. Before taxes. $32 is actually the lowest priced wine for a lot of wines in Loudoun County now, so there you go. This is a Chardonnay, and Chardonnay is an unusual grape for Virginia. They do it really well in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region. In fact, Chardonnay is a hybrid that was created at Cornell University, hence the Nell in the name. It's got a little bit of Chardonnay in it, but it's a hybrid. They merged this grape with a couple other varietals, and they decided to call it Chardonnay. And it's a very non-scientific analysis of how this wine came to be, but it is very similar to Chardonnay. It's actually, I think the wine that is merged with is Pinot Gris, I believe, or Sauvignon Blanc. Okay, they told me at the winery over the weekend. I think it's Sauvignon Blanc. Honestly, correct me in the comments if I'm incorrect. So Chardonnay, it's basically a Chardonnay, but it's got a little touch of fruitier quality that you would find in a. I keep wanting to say Pinot Gris, Cab. I'm shooting this video after a full day of work, my normal job, and I normally do these videos in the morning. So I'm a little bit fuzzy right now because I've been concentrating on my real job. So whatever grape I said after Pinot Gris just recently, that is the grape they merged with the Chardonnay to create Chardonnay. Sauv Blanc, there we go. I knew it would come back to me. Sauv Blanc, okay. I need to get out of my other job and concentrate on Virginia wine. So this is, it's very smooth drinking. If you like Chardonnays, especially Chardonnays that are a little fruitier, you might like this. It is dry. It's a very dry style. And I think I've had this variety at a couple other wineries in Virginia, but I really like this the day that I happened to be there. so I got a bottle to go. But they also have a dry rosé at this winery. They have a Cab Franc, of course. They have a Vidal Blanc. They have a couple of blends, a Petit Verdot. So not a huge number of wines, but the wines that they have are pretty much Virginia standard wines. Now this particular style of Chardonnay has won the Governor's Cup. And unfortunately, it doesn't have the year. Some of the other bottles I saw at the winery have the year listed on the label, and this bottle does not have the year on the label. It's got an image of Saturn. You can't really see it, but there's an image of Saturn here, and there's a star. And that's usually where the year goes for the vintage. So I don't know what year this is. I'm going to presume it's a 2021. And if it is a 2021, this baby won the Virginia Gold Cup at the Virginia Governor's Cup. So this is a great wine to get. Again, $32, not going to break the bank. Beautiful view from up there. They've got a couple of seats that are outside. They have some Adirondack chairs that kind of like, you can relax and really kick back. Go there before the weather gets too cold, because pretty soon it's going to be too cold to sit outside. But it's a great place to go with a wonderful view. The one thing I will say about it is watch the road going into the winery. It's extremely treacherous in a way. I mean, it's not paved. It's a gravel road, but some of those stones are really, really sharp. So it's kind of an obstacle course going up there. So be very careful, but it's worth the drive to go up there to check them out. Definitely check them out. Star in the Valley in Strasburg, Virginia. So what goes well with this particular wine? Well, again, I try to find a link between the wine and the music. The underrated piece of music that I have chosen for this installment, there's a song on this album that has the word star in it. Okay, so there is your link. Not much of a link there, kind of, not a very scientific link, or not a very definable link, or glorious link, whatever we want to say. The song has the word star in it. And I'm talking about this band here. This is REM, okay? And this is an album they put out in 1994 called Monster. And it's still sealed. This is the original album version. This is not a remaster. This is the original album that was pressed on vinyl in 1994, and it's sealed, and I still have it sealed. And this was an album that was pretty important for this band, and I think it was also very underrated. People had a lot of high hopes for this album when it came out in '94, and a lot of people were caught off guard because the previous two albums that REM had before this, which were Out of Time and Automatic for the People, were kind of folksy, a little bit more acoustic centered, and the songs were a lot more atmospheric and quieter in many ways. Not a lot of rockers on there. So this album came out after two albums of those types of moods that I just described, and it was a rocker. This was a rocker. This was a return to form to the IRS label era of REM. And I think it took a lot of people by surprise, because REM won a lot of new fans because of the Out of Time album, and then of course Automatic for the People. They were on a winning streak with those two records. Out of Time in '91, and then Automatic for the People in '92. Back-to-back classics, I think. Two of the best records of the '90s, really. And then they came out with this in '94. So they had all those new fans that really loved the sound of those other two albums, and they put this on, and they were like, what in the world is this? Well, this is really the rocking college band, new alternative rock with a 90s twist, almost like kind of a grunge twist, I should say. What's the Frequency, Kenneth was the first single from this album. And an abstract reference for something that Dan Rather said on CBS News one time. What's the frequency, Kenneth? Okay, whatever that is. Well, I think it's a broadcast term, and they used that as the starting point for that song, and that song was the first single from this album. Star 69 was another single from this album, and that's where I decided to link the wine in with the music because of Star 69. But you also had other songs on here like Bang and Blame and Strange Currencies. There's a song on here called Let Me In, that is very grungy, and I think it's meant as a tribute to Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain died, I think he died while they were making this album, actually. So he's definitely influenced the music on this record. I think it's held up very well. In fact, I read somewhere that it's gotten a critical reevaluation and people now really appreciate this album, but it sold pretty well, but I think it sold pretty well. It sold really well because it was coming off the heels of two really successful albums. But over time, people have not been that kind to this record. Now they are. I think people are starting to appreciate it more, especially since REM, they had so many different styles throughout the years of all their music. All the albums they put out had different vibes to them, and it's because that's how they were feeling at the moment. And as Peter Buck himself said, when they decided to make this record, they decided to lock away the mandolins and the dulcimers and the acoustic guitars and auto harps and all those other instruments they used on the other albums, and just bring out all the electric guitars and make a real rock and roll record. That's a perfect description of this. So this is Monster. I also have this album on CD, and I would say back in 2004, 2005, 2006, I think 2005, 2006, around that time, all the Warner Brothers albums that REM put out, which started in 1989, they switched labels from IRS Records to Warner Brothers Records in 1988 or 89 era. So all the albums they put out on Warner Brothers, which are Green, which came out in 1988 or 89, all the way up to the album they put out in 2004 called Around the Sun. All of those albums were remastered and put on this disc, which is actually also got a DVD on there. So it's a remastered CD and also a DVD. And the DVD has interviews with the band while they were making the albums. So each album that they were making, the interviews are from that era that they were making the album in, and also has some music videos. Some music videos they shot for each album. So these are real collector's pieces. I haven't seen how much they're going for on eBay. I don't believe they're in print anymore. I didn't get Around the Sun because I couldn't really connect with that album. I probably should give that album another listen. But all the other ones, Green all the way up to Reveal, which is an album from 2001, I think. Reveal came out. I got all of those on this special disc, which Warner Brothers put out. A really wonderful thing, and it goes really, really well with this. And I have not broken the seal on this because I got this album at a record store that was going out of business, and they were literally closing that weekend, and they had a huge inventory of albums. And I went in there, and they asked me what I wanted, and I said, do you have any REM on vinyl? And next thing I know, the guy's coming out with not only an REM album, 2 REM albums, I should say. They're also sealed. They had not even been broken. The seals haven't even been broken yet. So because I had the CDs, I decided I'm not going to break these seals until I get a decent turntable. The other album that they handed to me was their follow-up album to Monster, which was New Adventures in Hi-Fi. And I almost talked about this because this is also a criminally underrated record. But I decided to concentrate on Monster because of Star 69. And Star 69, of course, goes well with Star in the Valley. So there you go, your REM connection. I knew I would get around to REM eventually. Enjoy some really great Virginia wine this holiday season, whether it's white or red, and we will see you very soon on this channel.